Well, many of you have been searching and praying for King Jay, and you've been asking us a lot of questions online along the way, and we're listening, and we've been able to get at least some answers. Eyewitness News reporter Erica Zuko is live for us in the newsroom. And Erica, one of the questions people keep asking about is King Jay's brothers and sisters. What about them?
Well, Jeff, family members had told us that Christopher Davila does have other children, and so a lot of people have been wondering, how are they doing? Has anybody checked on them? Well, we reached out to Child Protective Services both earlier in the week and again today, and there's not a whole lot that they can legally release, but they said that they are working on getting us as much information as they can, and as soon as we have that, we'll of course share it in our later newscasts and at kens5.com. And we've also reached out to San Antonio Police about any potential calls for service in any of the homes that were associated with this case. We know that there were some Child Protective Services call-outs, as well as a call-out about a vehicle theft and one about a wanted person, but those of course were just incident call-outs. It doesn't necessarily mean that anyone was cited or charged with anything.
And Erica, people are also asking a lot of questions about the specifics of the timeline of this case. What about that?
Yeah, that's right, Jeff. And people want to know exactly when King Jay was initially hurt and then when he passed away. And we don't have a definite answer on that yet. An affidavit says on January 3rd, a witness had heard Christopher Davila and his mom talking on the phone about the baby being injured. So that would mean it was at least one day before that staged kidnapping happened. But police say the medical examiner is still investigating. So we're going to have to wait until that is complete. And we might have a little bit more information then. And a lot of people's other questions have been about getting justice for baby King Jay. And Bexar County's new district attorney, Joe Gonzalez, is of course the one to ask those questions to. So we're going to send it back to you, Jeff, and you have him here in the studio.
Well, that's right. Thank you, Eric.